PHP was extremely popular in the early 2000s. Massive companies that we're seeing today were built using PHP. One clear example is Facebook, which is worth more than $400 billion in 2022. Alongside Facebook, another example everyone is super familiar with is the massive free encyclopedia, Wikipedia. PHP has a wide range of features and functionality and is relatively easy to learn and use, which explained its popularity. However, over the years, it has garnered a lot of criticism from developers around the world. A survey made in 2019 asked programmers to rank their favorite programming language. At the top of the list, we can see familiar languages like Python, JavaScript, and Go. But if we scroll all the way at the bottom of the list, we will find PHP as the fourth least wanted language in the survey. To understand why PHP had this massive shift in popularity, we need to get a closer look on the creator of the programming language itself. Rasmus Lerdorf, its creator, coded the first version of PHP in 1994. The only reason why PHP was invented was because he was trying to maintain his personal website by writing as little code as possible. While there are many reasons on why having a smaller code base is advantageous in programming, Rasmus did it for a completely different reason.
I'm not very interested in programming. It's kind of tedious and boring. So if I could reduce the amount of time I had to spend programming and maximize the output and get to the solution quicker. That was my goal with PHP.
I really don't like programming. I built this tool to program less so that I could reuse code. Rasmus didn't have any plans to turn this project into a full programming language. He was just solving his own problems. When talking about PHP's early days, Rasmus said,
it was a productivity tool for myself. So I could very quickly go to a new client and whip up a new web application for him and tie them to their database or whatever they needed. And every client had slightly different requirements, so I kept extending my tool. Then other people started asking me about this stuff. They asked me how I built these things, and I said, well, I'm using this little tool I built. And they asked if they could have it. I said, sure, why not? I mean, that's not what I'm selling. I'm selling my services of solving problems. The tool itself is irrelevant, really. It's just my hammer.
I don't know how to stop it. There was never any intent to write a programming language. I have absolutely no idea how to write a programming language. I just kept adding the next logical step on the way. It was clear that the creator of the PHP's programming language was never really interested in coding. Perhaps we could even say that he wasn't interested in the PHP project itself. He was just trying to piece things together only to make his life easier when working with the web. This behavior might have led to some of the negative aspects programmers saw with the language. One major aspect every developer keeps mentioning is that the language has a messy syntax and it's really hard to work with. For example, in PHP there are two ways to print something out: echo and print. Print can take a single argument while echo can take multiple arguments. So basically two very similar things that only differ in a few crucial details. This can confuse programmers because there are two functions doing the same thing in the same code base. So why even have two methods? Another example is portrayed clearly with this meme. Other languages follow a consistent and a familiar way to split a string or a text into individual characters, but PHP on the other hand uses the function name explode to do the same thing. PHP is an embarrassment, a blight upon my craft. It's so broken, virtually every feature in PHP is broken somehow. The language, the framework, the ecosystem are all just bad. This is a blog post by an internet user named Evie. She wrote a 10,000 words long essay on why she hates the PHP programming language. She says a language must be predictable, concise, reliable, and debuggable. I assert that the following qualities are important for making a language productive and useful, and PHP violates them with wild abandon. This seems to be consistent with what Rasmus said himself, describing how PHP was built while not following the right practices.
It doesn't always lead to consistency, but it does lead to getting the features and actually being able to do something, being able to connect to this type of database, even though it may not be the best way of doing it, at least it gets you there. And that's always been what PHP is about, is solving the problem.
While Rasmus was aiming for quantity and not necessarily for quality, this approach was not met well with the programming community. For a lot of coders, programming is an art. Having beautiful code that can be read and maintained by others is something that they strive for. And PHP did not deliver on that aspect at all, which has raised a lot of concern throughout the years.
One of the issues with PHP is you can make some ugly code. You can make some truly horrible looking code that works. That works. It functions. To be clear, it functions. It does the task that you assigned it. But if you're somebody else trying to look at the code afterwards, it can be an utter nightmare to look at the code.
While PHP had a lot of complaints on its earlier versions and has since then improved on a lot of its criticism, it improved on its performance, its security, and most importantly, its language consistency. From its initial version to now, all the way to PHP version 8, PHP has been continuously updating the language by adding new features and fixing some of its problems. But unfortunately, these updates came in too late. Programming language popularity can change over time. It happened before with other languages and will happen again in the future. The reasons can be different each time. In the case of PHP, it seems that the community has just lost interest in the language. While it was very popular in the past, it is not viewed in the same light anymore. The programming community is still finding reasons to dislike this coding language. Today, the main reason is that the language has reached meme status. There are countless of memes on the internet describing how bad this programming language is, like this one over here, or this one, or this, and many more. These days, people start hating on PHP because they hear other people hating on PHP. It's the same thing as hating on Nickelback because everyone dislikes Nickelback. Typing why people hate PHP on Google leaves you to find out that it has sort of become a trend to hate on this coding language. On Reddit, a user said, "I'm a PHP programmer for 15 plus years. I think the hate is mostly a meme. People think it's cool to hate on PHP." Another user jokingly said, "PHP stands for people hate PHP." While there are many people jumping on the PHP hate train, there are some trying to defend it. PHP does get a lot of hate. You have to remember that a lot of the hate probably just comes from memes and people that have never touched the language. It's easy to dismiss a language like PHP by only looking at its meme status today, and it's easy to forget what PHP achieved in the past. While PHP was created out of necessity and was never really planned out as a proper language, it still has managed to dominate the internet during its heydays. PHP was so popular that it can still be seen today. A lot of websites are still built on PHP, along with hundreds of $billion worth of companies. Rasmus, its creator, has since replied to the criticism of PHP by clapping back at the haters with a few simple words. "Yes, I am a terrible coder, but I am probably still better than you."